Greetings to all my family, friends, and fellow church members. Welcome once again to my humble little office here in the beautiful North Okanagan. Just the other day, I was driving home from Kelowna through the southern entrance into the city of Vernon when I noticed across, adjacent to the highway, Highway 97, a billboard. And emblazoned across it were three main words: heroes and the word thank you. It was a billboard, I believe, was erected a week or two ago by Fantastic, that's the Vernon and District Sports Society, as a way of saying thank you to healthcare workers throughout the North Okanagan during this, and their dedication during this COVID 19 pandemic. It's just one example of an unexpected outbreak of praise and thanks that has become a sub theme of our battle with this global pandemic. And just the other day, I was talking with my sister Jackie. She lives in the city of Port Moody, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the conversation, she said, "Steve, do you hear that?" I said, "Hear what?" She said, "Well, just listen." And she put her cell phone on speakerphone, and then I could hear it crystal clear. The sound of sirens blazing away. People, her next door neighbors banging pots and pans, and people whistling, and cars honking, and it was uh, it was just magnificent. It was a cacophony of praise. The air was filled. It was just a magnificent thing. And my sister said, "Isn't it magnificent?" She has a daughter and a son-in-law who both work are frontline workers in the city of Vancouver, and she's as any mother would, deeply concerned for them, for their health, and of course deeply touched then by the accumulative, you know, spirit of praise is breaking out all over the world on behalf of healthcare workers. One of my members here in the city of Vernon, and I have a number of church members who are healthcare, work in the healthcare system. And one of those members is a gentleman by the name of Brian Brooks. I interviewed him earlier this week and asked him to share a few thoughts about what it's like working in the Vernon Jubilee Hospital, and what it's like to experience, that spirit of praise and thanks that's breaking forth everywhere, it seems. Here's the interview. Okay, so thank you, Brian, for being willing to take a few minutes with me this morning. Now, Brian, you're I'm not sure exactly. You're a respiratory therapist at the Vernon Jubilee, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
As a respiratory therapist, because COVID-19 attacks the respiratory system, you're not only a frontline worker, just that you're a professional in the hospital, but you're a frontline worker because you're a respiratory therapist, right?
That's correct. Yes. Respiratory therapy is part of the code team. So people that are having any sort of breathing issues, and that's one of the characteristics of COVID-19, is that they have difficulty breathing, which can lead to pneumonia. So respiratory therapists are right at the head of the bed, as we say, with the doctors and nurses in emergency when the patients come in.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm wondering, and I think a lot of people are wondering, Brian, is just what is it like for frontline workers in the hospital? Sort of, the ups and downs emotionally you must go through, the weariness of long hours, and then the whole issue of COVID-19. It's a global pandemic, but where it plays out is locally in the hospital, with patients, and it's a very serious thing. So how are people doing in the Vernon Jubilee, and how are you doing, Brian? And what's the toll that this is taking on you? Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. It is a stressful time in the hospital. There's been a lot of changes to our policies as far as how we deal with patients, how we receive patients, how we're dressed. There's been a lot of talk about the protective devices, the N95s that we use. So there's a whole different procedure for preparing to meet one of these type of patients. So it has been stressful, but the healthcare team as a whole, we're trained to deal with stressful situations and to deal with it calmly. So yes, there is a lot of stress at the hospital, but I think it's handled well, and we're encouraged to talk with one another, our manager, if we're having issues as well. So everyone has their own way of dealing with it, but yes, there has and is stress at the hospital because this is something that we haven't dealt with before. But I I believe it's always been dealt in a very uh, professional way.
Mhm. Brian, as I mentioned earlier, one of the phenomena that has manifested itself as a result of this global pandemic is this um, evening ritual that has developed. And I don't even know where it started, if it was in China or Italy or where it started, but it has become an evening ritual all over the world where people come out onto their balconies, they come out of their onto their front lawn, but they start banging pots and making noise. People start honking their horns, and now police uh, policemen, police cruisers turn on their sirens, and all the professional healthcare emergency people turn on their sirens, and it's just all it's a cacophony of praise, really, for healthcare workers.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm wondering, Brian, um, how does that impact those of you on the front lines? How do you respond to that? How does it impact you? How does it make you feel?
It's really awesome, actually. The first time I noticed, um, so around the hospital, the people have put up some different signs. Uh, Hearts generally, and some are just red, like wooden hearts painted red, and there's others where people have written things on. We appreciate you, thank you for what you do. And actually, there's a house right across the street from the hospital. So as you come to the stop sign to turn either left or right to go down the hospital hill, that place right across the street has got a sign in the window with a big heart and says, "Thank you, we appreciate what you do." And it just really touches your heart. After a stressful day at the hospital, it's nice to know, even though people aren't literally there, that people are thinking about you and that they appreciate what you do. It really touches your heart.
Well, Brian, on behalf of myself and my wife and all of your fellow church members, I think it is very appropriate to say, we want to extend our thankfulness and our appreciation for all that you do, and all of the healthcare workers who are on the front lines and who are putting their lives on the line. We just want to thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. And we promise to continue to pray for you, and just want you to know that we love you so much, and thank you so much for all that you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for the whole hospital, like there's so many different groups working there, and everybody plays a very important part. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian, and that's it. That's our interview. So, but we really appreciate you taking a few minutes with me this morning.
Yeah, you're welcome.
God bless.
Yeah, take care.
Okay, Brian. Thanks now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Folks, it truly is a magnificent thing, isn't it? The dedication of all those who give their all so that we might live. And folks, as a pastor, as a clergy person, I have to tell you that this larger story, this all too real life and death struggle that we're all caught up in with COVID-19 and the sacrifice of others that we might live, reminds me of the ancient story that Christians the world over are celebrating this weekend. I'm talking, of course, about the Easter weekend, which is a celebration of the age-old message of the cross of Calvary and the God-man who died there some 2,000 years ago. One of my favorite names for Jesus is the Great Physician, and it was into the very heart of this broken, dying world that Christ came as the healer of heaven. Jesus asked his critics at one point in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 2, verse 17, "Who needs a doctor?" he asked. "The healthy or the sick?" And then he answered his own question by saying, "I have come into this world to invite the sin sick, not the spiritually fit." When the creator of the universe on that Easter weekend hung upon the cross of Calvary in the person of Christ, he was declaring to the universe his heart for hurting people. He was declaring that we are not alone, that God knows our pain. He knows what it means to be isolated and forsaken, to suffer torment and pain. He knows what it's like to desperately struggle for life and to painfully draw that one long last breath, which means that God knows death too. It's the Easter story. But the good news of the Easter message is that there is the promise of healing, that death will not have the final say, that just as Jesus came forth triumphantly from the tomb on that sun-drenched Sunday morning, so too will all those who've put their trust in him. We call it the blessed hope. The Apostle Paul described the blessed hope this way some 2,000 years ago in the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. He says this, "Now, we don't want you, brothers and sisters, to be in any doubt about those who fall asleep in death, or to grieve over them like men who have no hope. After all, if we believe that Jesus died and rose again from death, then we can believe that God will just as surely bring forth all who are asleep in him." Here we have a definite message from the Lord, Paul continues. It is that those who are still living when he comes will not in any way precede those who have previously fallen asleep. One word of command, one shout from the archangel, one blast from the trumpet of God, and the Lord himself will come down from heaven. Those who have died in Christ will be the first to rise, and then we who are still living on the earth will be swept up with them into the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And after that, we shall be with him forever. What a celebration that will be, my friends. The trumpets of heaven erupting in celebration to the healer of heaven, the angelic choirs breaking forth in adulation and praise, and the redeemed of the ages. You know, I've often wondered if I'll have breath enough to join in to that great chorus at all. Breathtaking celebration, cosmic chorus. That day is coming, my friends. No matter what the challenges we may have to wrestle with in the days and years to come, the promise of Easter is sure. The great physician came to this world to be with us, to show us the promise and reality of healing, and then to demonstrate the greatest promise of all, that death is a defeated foe. The great physician will one day raise us up and take us home. May God bless you this Easter weekend, my friends. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please put your trust in him. God bless.